Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Fluctus Channel. For over 425 years, the Grasmeyer family has been perfecting the art of bell making in Innsbruck, Austria. Today, the 14th generation, led by Peter Grasmeyer and his brother Johannes, continues this legacy, ensuring their bells resonate across more than 100 countries.
Unsere Glocken läuten Jahrhunderte. Die älteste Glocke, die heute noch läutet, die meine Vorfahren gegossen haben, ist aus 1637.
Crafting a Grasmeyer bell is a long and intricate process. Not to mention, it's dangerous, as workers are exposed to metal at extreme temperatures. First, the mold is created. This is a false bell, crafted from various elements including clay, and swept by strickle boards.
Besteht aus Lehm. Die Glockenform, die schabloniert wird, wird aus Lehm, Ziegel und dann sind aber ganz viele noch Bestandteile, die hineinkommen, wie Kälberhaare, Hanf, Gerstenhäcksel, also Pferdemist. Ganz viel kommt hinein, um diesen Lehm zu verfeinern, dass er luftdurchlässig, aber nicht metalldurchlässig ist, dass es ein schöner Guss wird.
Strickle boards are like large wooden shavers that are pushed around the mold to ensure it's consistent in shape and size with other bells, and that the mold is symmetrical. Religious figures and words that will adorn the exterior of the bell are also added to this mold. Artists melt bright red wax to pour into the detailed carvings of these images. Casting a bell begins with the melting of the bronze, which is a combination of copper and zinc. This mixture gives the Grasmeyer bell its signature durability and resonance. The work is extremely hot and dangerous. Workers must don a mask and silver protective gear to reflect some of the heat. Flames shoot up as the molten bars are melted down into large underground furnaces, pits dug in the building grounds. Next, the glowing metal is carefully transferred out of the furnace. It's mixed with a long metal spatula-type instrument. Next, the molten liquid is poured into the bell's mold, where it will take at least 2 days to cool and solidify. The nearly finished bell is then hung by crane and prepared to undergo a precise tuning process. The Grasmeyer bells are tapped in all areas of their form to ensure they are in perfect tune. Digital sound wave analysis verifies the bell's musical accuracy. Each semitone is divided into 100 microintervals, ensuring that its multiple harmonic frequencies are in perfect balance.
Unser Ziel ist es, die Stradivari der Glocken herzustellen. Also unser Ziel ist, wir schauen immer nach oben, dass wir die Stradivari herstellen, sowohl musikalisch als auch optisch, dass einfach die Glocke ein schönes, tolles Kunstwerk ist, was viel Harmonie versprüht.
Beyond casting new bells, the Grassmeyer team also restores historic bells, ensuring their tones remain pure for generations.
Derzeit gießen wir Glocken, aber wir restaurieren auch Glocken. So könnten wir zum Beispiel auch die Liberty Bell restaurieren, falls es gewünscht wäre, dass sie wieder den Ursprungsklang hat, wie sie damals beim Guss war.
The bell-making tradition is being passed down to the 15th generation of the Grassmeyer family. Ensuring that their bells will continue to chime in churches, cathedrals, and concert halls worldwide for generations to come. Like Austrian bell making, forging a Keris dagger in Indonesia relies on intense heat. Not just for shaping metal, but for fusing layers into a single resilient blade. As Keris craftsman Subandi explains, the true essence of the Keris lies in its symbolic meanings.
Keris sangat istimewa adalah keris tidak hanya dilihat dari bentuk fisiknya, karena di situ karena ada mengandung makna-makna karena keris kan simbolik, mengandung makna-makna ajaran-ajaran yang sangat luhur, sehingga itu yang menarik. Maka keris di dalam budaya Jawa, misalnya di lingkungan keraton, diposisikan sebagai pusaka, bukan senjata.
This centuries-old process transforms the Keris into more than a weapon, embedding it with artistic and spiritual significance. Meanings embedded in the dagger's creation process. Making a Keris begins with determining an auspicious day to start forging the blade.
Nah, keris biasanya kalau dibuat kita ada menentukan hari yang baik untuk memulai pembuatan keris. Kemudian ada ritual laku sang empu, mungkin puasa bisa 3 hari 3 malam dalam hitungan neptu Jawa itu yang 3 hari yang punya nilai 40. Nah, kemudian menentukan hari, kemudian ada upacara sesaji. Nah, bentuk macam-macam sesaji ini sebetulnya kan doa.
A Keris is traditionally made from 3 primary metals. Iron, the core material for the blade, nickel or meteorite used to create the intricate motif, and steel, which is added for strength and durability. The physical crafting of a Keris involves several steps. First, there's heating and hammering. The 3 materials are heated and beaten together. Next, the materials are repeatedly folded to create intricate pamor patterns.
Setelah itu, karena pamor ini kan ada dua golongan, artinya pamor yang biasa atau pamor yang direka. Dia didekayasa untuk motif pamornya. Nah, setelah memenuhi apa yang diinginkan bentuk pamor itu, kemudian menyediakan baja sebagai.
Finally, there's the overall shaping of the blade. The Keris is formed according to the artisan's vision. It can be either straight or wavy, known as loke. Each Keris takes about a month to make, but more elaborate designs featuring dragons or gold inlays can take up to 2 months. Once the blade is shaped, it undergoes a series of finishing steps. Including grinding to refine its design and strength. And then washing and oiling to protect the iron from rust. Finally, the handle and sheath are attached to complete the dagger. But of course, the Keris is not just a dagger. It's a living artifact, passed down through generations.
Sebetulnya keris tidak ada harganya, standar harganya itu nggak ada sebetulnya lo ya, karena ini kan karena ini karya seni, bukan. Nah,
recognized by UNESCO in 2005 as a noble cultural heritage of Indonesia, the Keris is a symbol of identity and artistry that anyone can own, regardless of gender or age. Heading north to the industrial hubs of Suzhou and Shandong, China, we find the heart of Foundry innovation. This is where cutting-edge equipment shapes the future of metalwork. These factories refine and perfect advanced tools like the Foundry degating hammer. This pneumatic air hammer revolutionizes global construction, using compressed air to deliver rapid, high-impact precision. Engineered for efficiency, it replaces manual force and flame cutting, reducing labor strain while ensuring clean, controlled metal shaping without compromising structural integrity.
传统的工艺一般都是通过火焰切割、人工撞击去处理。通过我们这款设备，可以大大提高生产效率，降低工人的劳动强度，同时不伤铸件本体，成本低，节约切割耗材。
Wang Jun, manager of Waging Automation, oversees the precise engineering of air hammers. The production process begins with forging and heat treating steel alloys to enhance strength and durability. Next, the metal undergoes refinement to achieve a smooth, corrosion-resistant finish. To ensure precision, drilling and threading are performed for secure assembly. A critical step in this process is CNC milling, or computer numerical control. An automated manufacturing technique that precisely controls machinery like lathes, mills, and drills. Alongside CNC milling, turning and grinding further refine the air hammer's components, shaping them with extreme accuracy. Finally, meticulous assembly ensures seamless pneumatic operation, making each air hammer a high-performance tool.
这款产品原材料采用锻打、回火等工艺，通过车床、磨床、数控、铣床等加工装配而成。 主要用于铸钢件、球磨铸铁件的冒口去除。
Quality control is vital at waging automation. Where air hammers undergo rigorous pressure testing and precision calibration to ensure durability and efficiency. As global demand for automation grows, China's air hammer manufacturing is shaping the future of precision machining. Beyond industrial tools, China's mastery of metalwork extends to producing steel spheres. These are striking elements in modern sculptures, exhibits, and landscape art. With advanced manufacturing techniques, China has perfected the creation of these flawless, highly reflective spheres. Surprisingly, steel spheres begin as flat, two-dimensional shapes. Using stencils, steel sheets are precisely cut into specific patterns. Which will later be shaped and assembled into a perfect sphere. Next comes the crucial transformation, curving. Flat steel segments are expertly rolled or pressed into perfectly contoured panels, aligning with the sphere's curvature. Then, precision welding brings the sphere to life. Each curved panel is joined, and to achieve a perfectly spherical shape, the assembled structure undergoes hydroforming. This process involves sealing the sphere, filling it with water, and applying high-pressure fluid internally. The pressure uniformly expands the metal, smoothing out imperfections and ensuring a consistent curvature. To achieve a mirror-like finish, the refined sphere is polished to a high gleam. Additional treatments such as coloring or coating may also be applied depending on artistic requirements. The precision and scalability of hydroforming have made steel spheres popular as public art installations in museums and galleries, as well as architectural elements. Across industries, the relentless pursuit of precision, efficiency, and artistry bridges tradition with innovation. From Grassmeyer's resonant bells to Indonesia's sacred Keris daggers, and from China's high-tech air hammers to its seamless steel spheres, craftsmanship evolves while honoring its roots. This fusion of history and progress ensures global craftsmanship remains both timeless and trailblazing. That's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of our new content. See you next time.